Congratulations, you just went out and bought yourself your first set of audiophile grade headphones. Good for you, and hey, welcome to the club. I'm sure you're very excited and you can't wait to put your headphones on, grab your phone or your MP3 player, whatever the heck you're gonna listen to, plug those headphones in, and get ready to enjoy a heck of an amazing audio experience that you have done research on and you've heard over and over again. You cannot wait to have this new transitional experience of what audio is supposed to be. You're ready to go, you got your headphones plugged into your device, you hit play, and then how much did these cost again? So what happened? Well, odds are that the device that you have decided to try to listen to your audio on is just straight up not up to the task of powering your new equipment. So let me give you a quick rundown of why that might be while I put on my audiophile hat once again and give you this brief introduction to amplifiers and DACs. So to be clear, most of your electronics that are able to receive, for example, a headphone, have a built-in amplifier and DAC solution of some kind. That's required in order for a headphone to get sound from that device. The device has to be able to power that headphone to some degree and be able to convert digital audio back to an analog source. The problem is that a lot of the time, these devices, for example, a standard phone, it's not the priority of that phone to give you a powerful amplifier and a very well measuring DAC. It's probably a very basic setup that's really only expecting you to use very general equipment and not something like a 300 ohm audiophile headphone. So a solution to this is to have a dedicated amplifier and a dedicated DAC to give you, one, the power that you need to properly power that headphone, and two, a well-measuring high-resolution DAC to give you nice, clean, high-quality audio. Amps and DACs come in a variety of different flavors and sizes. You can have amps and DACs as small as a thumb drive, but also have amps and DACs as wide as I can stretch out my arms. It's a circus, right? And there's a huge amount of options out there, and more or less intended for very specific uses. But some of those more specific uses are very, very extreme and are likely not something you ever have to worry about. But there are some general solutions to this, and we're going to talk a little bit about it. So first, let's talk about amplifiers. This is probably the easiest thing to understand. An amplifier, a dedicated headphone amplifier, is exactly what it sounds like. It is a device that amplifies your headphones. You plug your headphones into your amplifier so that it is able to get the power it needs to work properly. Something like a 300 ohm HD6XX is going to benefit significantly from a dedicated headphone amplifier that can give it a significant amount of power as opposed to an onboard amp on a phone. This simply is not going to be able to provide your new headphone the power, the electrical current and wattage that it needs to operate and perform at the level it's designed to. That's where you would come in with a headphone amplifier. There are many, many kinds of amplifiers. Solid state, tubes, hybrids, and many variations in between. Is one better than the other? That's extremely subjective. Typically though, a solid state amplifier like this Sheet Magni 2 is going to have better quality measurements than something like a tube amplifier. Whereas a tube amplifier, one, looks cool as hell, but also, while not technically as well performing in terms of measurements, you're able to do things with a tube amplifier you simply can't with a solid state. Primarily, it's in the tubes. With a tube amplifier, you could do what's called tube rolling, and that is where you can remove these tubes and replace them with other tubes. Many times, people who do tube rolling look at very old vintage tubes, vacuum sealed tubes, and a tube to tube, even the exact same manufacturer and the exact same model, can have variations in sound. So this is just kind of another level of customization to really fine-tune what kind of sound that you want. But in a nutshell, your solid-state amplifier is going to be really well measuring and a lot more precise, whereas your tube amplifier is introducing distortion to your audio. Okay, it is not a very good measuring device, but tube amps add what I would consider to be character to a sound. And you also can sometimes even gain other benefits, for example, additional soundstage. A hybrid amplifier is an amplifier that is probably mostly of a solid state design, but will have a tube or maybe several tubes so that it's kind of giving you maybe the best of both worlds. It's not always the case, but it is a solid state amplifier that has tubes built into it as well, so that maybe you're getting a little bit of that tube flavor while also measuring very well. I find that a little redundant. I think if you're gonna go with tubes, go all the way, because it's not the job of a tube amplifier to be super accurate. That's the job of the solid state. So it's just a preference thing. You gotta decide what kind of amplifier you like and what you maybe don't like, or what your goals really are. But it's just good to understand that there are different kinds of amplifiers, and that amplifiers can come in not just a variety of different types of technology that they use, but also a variety of how much power they're able to push, what kind of mechanisms and dials are being used for them, what kind of outputs and inputs can be used with them, and just a huge variety of variables in terms of what a amplifier can do. So now let's talk about DACs. A DAC is a digital to analog converter. Why do we need a digital to analog converter? Well, let me give you a quick rundown of the process of how music is recorded, for example. You have your artists in a recording studio. They are singing into microphones and they are playing their instruments into microphones. These are analog devices, and those devices are recording all of that sound, all that audio, and they are converting that audio to digital so that it could be stored and shared and transferred very easily and be very high quality. It is then the job of the DAC, the digital to analog converter, to take that digital audio file, that new digital audio source, and convert it back to analog, which is what your headphone is. A headphone is an analog device, just like how a microphone is. So in a nutshell, again, here's how this works. You have your artist who is recording into an analog device. That analog device is converting an analog sound to a digital file, a digital recording. That digital recording then in turn has to go through another converter to go back out to a analog listening device. So, hence the DAC, digital to analog converter. Now again, many electronic devices such as your phone or your computer already have some sort of DAC system built into it. It wouldn't be able to play an MP3 player to your headphone without one. But like with an amplifier, sometimes the DACs that are built into devices are again not specifically designed to be very high quality and produce very high resolution audio. That's when a standalone DAC would come into play. Now DACs are not as big of a jump in potential performance as an amplifier would be. Now let me take a minute to explain what I mean there. This headphone right here, the 6XXs, is going to perform significantly better from a dedicated headphone amplifier than it would from the amplification on my phone here. Okay, that is going to be a huge difference. My phone simply doesn't have the power capable to give me a listenable volume in this headphone. That's why I need a headphone amplifier to do that. However, the DAC in my phone versus a dedicated DAC, the difference there is going to be less noticeable, but there is going to be a difference because again, we're talking about a device purpose-built for a task. Not only is a dedicated DAC going to give you potentially a cleaner sound, a higher resolution sound, but oftentimes dedicated DACs are also able to give you the availability to listen to less compressed and sometimes uncompressed audio sources, much higher quality audio files. Going from a phone or an MP3 player that can only play, let's say, up to 320 kilobyte per second audio files to a dedicated DAC that can play uncompressed master recordings, hey man, that's going to give you a difference. And if you have a headphone that is meant to kind of benefit from that, it just kind of makes sense, right? You want to be able to give your headphone the best chance it has to perform at the level it's intended to. And sometimes your phone or your PC is just not going to be able to cut it by itself. So what you might end up with is something like this. A stack. You got your headphone amplifier and a dedicated DAC. In this case, I have the Magni and Modi 2 from Sheet. This is a great little entry-level stack right here. And this is going to be significantly better than just what's on board my PC. This is going to be able to power my 300 ohm headphones properly, and I'm going to get nice high resolution, clean, well-measured audio from my DAC. But it doesn't have to be like this. You don't have to go with a standalone amplifier and a standalone DAC. There are, again, hybrids where you can have a device that has a built-in amplifier and DAC combined. Now, is one better than the other? That's hard to say. There's no denying that, unfortunately, going this route with a dedicated unit for both, well, that can get kind of expensive. It's just par of the course, unfortunately. So it could be a pretty attractive option to just have some sort of combo, a DAC amp combo. It also leaves you with less clutter on your desk, right? You have just everything in one device. And that combo is still very often still going to be a much better solution than just what's on your phone or on your PC. But that being said, the benefit you get from having them separate is that you are able to combine different devices. My Modi DAC is separate from its amplifier, which means I can plug my DAC into other amplifiers. I don't have to plug this into my Magni. If I wanted to, I could plug this into a tube amp. I could plug this into a speaker amp. It just kind of gives you more options, but that's going to be up to you. You don't have to go with a stack. You don't have to go with dedicated devices. Sometimes it really is just easier and cleaner to just have a combo device. So in general, this is kind of how your audio chain should look. If you are, let's say, a setup like what I have here, where I am listening to what's on my computer to a set of headphones. How that chain looks is like this. I have my PC, which houses all of my music files. That PC is then transferring those digital files to the DAC, the digital analog converter. That digital analog converter then transfers those digital files over to my amplifier. My amplifier then takes those digital files and pushes forward the proper amount of power to my headphones, and that is how I'm able to enjoy my audiophile headphones. So I hope that was informative. I hope that helped you. I hope that if you went out and got yourself some crazy cool headphones that for whatever reason you're thinking don't sound as good as you were hoping, maybe they sound just way too quiet, well, it's probably because you just need to give it some more stuff. That's kind of how these things go in the audiophile hobby. It's never just one thing. Sometimes you have to have all the toys. But whatever the case, go out there and explore. There's all sorts of stuff out there. There's all sorts of different kinds of amps and DACs. And if you have the option to do so, I highly recommend that you go to a store that has these devices and try them out. If you're in a small town like me, that's probably going to be pretty difficult to do. But if you're in a large city, you might be able to pull that off. And I would suggest that you do so, because I can tell you what I like, and so can other reviewers, but sound is a very subjective thing. So while someone might say, oh my God, go with a solid state solution because it's accurate, others might say, no, go with the tubes, man, because tubes are freaking baller. That's going to be up to you to decide, but at least now you might have an understanding as to why you should be looking at these things. So in any case, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you have a good weekend coming your way, and I'll see you very soon.